welcome to the Dice Tower. This is the Origins Summer Preview with the Dice Tower, done at the Origins Game Fair 2013 in conjunction both with the Dice Tower and the Game and Manufacturers Association, GAMA. In this series of videos, we talk to different publishers and designers about games that have just come out or that are about to come out in the future. Here's today's video with your host, Eric Summer.
It's Origins 2013. I'm here with Alex from Mayfair Games, and we're looking at 5 Points. Alex, tell me about this game.
So 5 Points is a game designed by Andreas Stedding, who most people will probably be familiar with Hansa Teutonica as his big title. We've had this for a couple of years. We're pretty excited to get it out the door now. It's an area control game, but it's an area control game that I think is going to surprise and probably challenge a few people. It is at its core a game about New York politics in the mid-19th century. 5 Points District of New York. Of course, the Gangs of New York movie is set in that same era. Mm-hmm. We've, of course, gone back to the original source material in a sense, the Asbury book from the 20s, which is this wonderfully lurid, breathless account of these gangs in New York and the horrible, shocking things that that happen in there. And for as sensationalized as that is, it's dripping with theme. And for a game like this, we felt that at least the thematically, though very abstracted, the gameplay reflects that idea of this back and forth of the control of the areas, not only necessarily the direct control through an election, but the area, and by area I'm now talking about the area around the election neighborhoods, and the influence that people can gain by being close to the action, not necessarily in the middle of it.
All right, how does it work?
So, what you've got are two types of pieces, player pieces. We have bosses, you have 5 of those, and you have rabble, which are our little cubes here.
These look like rabble.
Our little faceless guys who just come in and do your bidding, as it were.
Okay.
You also have a headquarters, which is a tile where your rabble cubes that are ready for action are sitting, and your burrows, which are off of the tile and are basically rabble cubes waiting to come onto your headquarters in order to be placed on the board. For those people that have played a game like El Grande, that'll be very familiar of moving your stuff. Exactly, so moving in. So at the beginning of the game, we're going to have neighborhood tiles based on the number of players. And so this will change in size based on the number of players. It's also, there are 4 colors that make up that neighborhood. So consequently, what happens is we take one of each color at the start of the game, or during setup, and then randomly choose from the remaining stack for the rest of them. So you're going to have some imbalances in the types of districts out, as well as the shape of the district every turn.
Okay.
So there's some already, before we begin playing, there's going to be some variability in play from game to game.
Right.
At the beginning of the game, everyone's going to start by having 3 districts of their own on the board. And that's just to seed the board. We put some people out in order to be able to kind of get the action going. We're also going to have 2 random buildings on the board, and there are 9 of them in the game. You'll use 2 of them in any given game. And those represent an advantage that player is going to have during the course of the game if they control this area, which simply means they have more rabble cubes there than any other player.
Okay.
On your turn, you have 2 options. You may either place a rabble cube into a district or into a neighborhood, or pass.
Okay.
Okay. Placing them in simply means go into a neighborhood, place your rabble cube down.
And you can place them anywhere.
Anywhere you want. You can put them on your own, put them in empty, put them in a building, whatever you'd like to do. By placing one into a neighborhood, you also then have the right to come over here and use rabble cubes on manipulation tiles. These are advantages that you'll have for this turn if you're the successful bidder for that tile. Some of them will give you extra votes in elections, some will give you victory points based on certain conditions. Some of them will let you actually move buildings or district tiles entirely.
Okay.
So by placing a rabble here, I can now come over here and place 1 or more rabble cubes to place a bid down on that. Someone else could come along and place a larger bid, at which point, if I come back, I have to put a larger bid down in order to keep it.
Right.
That will continue around until a player passes. When you pass, you're going to take, in this case, the top tile over here, which just basically says, I now get 7 cubes to place from my burrows onto my headquarters.
So the earlier you pass,
the more stuff you have for next round.
Yep.
If you want to push it, you can push it, but it's going to hamper your ability to play on the subsequent round. We go around and around until there's all but one player left. That one player is going to get 1 extra turn, 1 more turn to do stuff, and then they must pass.
They have to stop.
That ends our placement phase and moves us on to the election phase. First thing we're going to do, however, is award our manipulation tiles to the winners. Those people that have unsuccessful bids, their rabble goes back to their headquarters for use next round. Winning bids goes back to burrows. And now you have this advantage for the game. Now this is, not for the game, for the round. And that's important because if you bid on something and it ends up being useless to you, it's a useless bid. This is going to go away at the end of the round and you've lost that advantage. Exactly. After we award our manipulation tokens and resolve those, we're going to look at our buildings, and if somebody controls a building, they get that advantage for that round. In this case, if I controlled this building, I'd have an extra vote going into elections this round, in all elections that might take place. So after those, we are now going to have an election. Elections are going to occur in the area that has the most rabble cubes. So in this case, we have 5 rabble cubes here. That would be our election. If there's a tie, we can have multiple elections.
Okay.
But if we are, during the course of the game, if we were to have, for example, 3 tied districts, the player who passes last will not only choose which of our 2 districts will have elections, there's a maximum of 2 per turn, but will also choose the order in which those elections are resolved.
Okay.
And that'll become important when we start talking about control markers.
Yep.
How the election resolves is pretty simple. Rabble are 1 vote each, plus any bonus votes you might have. The winner removes all rabble cubes from the district and replaces with a boss.
Okay.
Now, bosses don't act for area control. They don't act for control of a building. They are, however, points at the end of the game if we make it to the end of the game. Tease, tease, tease.
If we make it.
And they also give you an advantage of allowing you an extra rabble onto your headquarters at the end of each round for every boss you have out.
Okay.
So it's good to have bosses. After we do an election, we're going to look at the adjacent districts to that election. And whoever controls that area is going to receive a control marker. In this case, purple would now receive a yellow control marker for being in control of the district adjacent to there.
Okay.
Purple would receive a red one. No one would get one here. We have a 3-way tie here, so instead of a control marker, everyone would get 1 victory point apiece.
Okay.
Our little meat cleavers are our victory points in this game. Okay. Control markers are important because they are worth 2 points each at the end of the game. And for a set of 1 of each color, it's an additional 5 points. So I would have 2 points, 4 points, 6 points, 13 points for a set of control markers. Okay. That would be the end of a round. We'd reset. People would get rabble cubes based on the number of bosses they have on the board. We'd put out 4 new manipulation tokens.
Oh, so they change each
Those will change. In fact, whether they were bid on or not, they go back in the pool.
Okay.
We mix up, we take 4 more, and we move on.
Great.
Okay. There are 2 ways this game ends.
Okay.
All right. If we reach the end of the game, which is triggered by either one of these 4 control marker piles running out, or we have a boss in every single district on the board, every single neighborhood. When that happens, we finish the round, we score points. 5 points for a boss, victory points as you've earned them throughout the game, and points for your control markers. However, if at any point in time a player has 5 bosses on the board, the game is over and they've won.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of points to be earned in these control markers, and a lot of people get very quickly that you have to focus on these, probably even more so than elections. But if everybody focuses on those, one player has the opportunity to grab a couple of quick elections, and suddenly they've got their 5 bosses on the board, the game's over.
Okay.
So it's a really interesting idea in the sense that once a boss is out, you know, they have an end game scoring bonus and whatnot, but once they're out, the only way to have to get a boss off the board is to have an election in that district. Because again, when an election happens, all pieces are removed, including bosses, and another one comes out. So it's, you know, you don't want to get anybody too far ahead. You've got to make sure you've got enough room to drag people back. It's a really interesting give and take game, managing your rabble cubes by when you pass and when you don't pass, making a big move but holding back perhaps sometimes. Interesting challenge, and the game plays in under an hour. It's about a 45-minute game on average once you know it.
And is 5 points available now?
It is available right now at your friendly local retailers and Mayfair. So.
Excellent. Alex, thank you very much for showing us 5 points.
Delighted. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for watching The Dice Tower and the Origin Summer Preview. We'll see you next time. I'm Tom Vassell, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.